My cousin Alex stole our inheritance and tried to ruin my relationship at the courthouse. The truth came out in the worst way. I never thought I'd see the day my family would turn a courthouse into a battlefield, but here we are. My cousin Alex, 40, has always had a knack for stepping over lines, but this time he went too far. It all started when my aunt passed away last year. She left behind a modest estate, mostly to me and my younger sister, Mia. Alex, of course, claimed he deserved a bigger portion because he helped her in her last years. Truth be told, he visited her once a month, barely stayed long enough to be helpful, and somehow convinced himself he was a favourite. The courthouse that day smelled like old wood and anxiety. I had my lawyer's paperwork in hand, and Mia was gripping my arm like we were bracing for a storm. My mom, pale and tight-lipped, sat beside us. Across the room, Alex strutted in, wearing his usual smug grin, and I swear I could see him sizing me up like a predator spotting prey. "Alex," I said under my breath, trying to stay calm, "please don't do anything stupid." He winked. "Relax, cousin, I'm just here for the family." Family? That word made me want to laugh and cry at the same time. He had spent the last month spreading rumours about me and Mia, claiming we were only after the inheritance and that our relationships were a sham. He'd even tried to convince my girlfriend, Lena, that I was hiding money and manipulating the will. Lena, bless her, came anyway, though I could see the tension in her shoulders. The judge entered, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s. Papers shuffled, phones were silenced, and the room grew quiet. Alex immediately started whispering to the court clerk, and I caught snippets, things like "she's not being honest" and "this isn't what I wanted." I leaned toward Mia, whispering, "He's trying to get the whole thing thrown into question." Mia's eyes were wide. "I can't believe he'd do this at the courthouse, in front of everyone." The first few minutes were procedural, boring even, but then Alex stood up suddenly. "Your Honour," he said, voice dripping with faux innocence, "I have reason to believe my cousin here is withholding information about other assets. This isn't fair to the family." My stomach dropped. Whispers erupted across the courtroom. I could feel my face burning, and Lena reached over to squeeze my hand. The room suddenly felt smaller, suffocating. When the judge looked at me, her eyes stern, I realised this was more than a battle over inheritance. It was Alex trying to manipulate relationships, drag everyone into his web, and paint me as greedy. And just like that, the storm had begun. Tension in the courtroom had shifted from mild curiosity to full-blown chaos. Every whisper, every shuffle of papers seemed louder than usual, like the room itself was holding its breath. Alex, of course, was thriving. He leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled, acting like the world's most innocent observer while plotting his next move. I tried to keep my focus on the judge, who was flipping through the documents, but I couldn't ignore the way Alex kept glancing at Lena. She had that subtle furrow in her brow, like she didn't know whether to trust me or the man who had spent weeks planting seeds of doubt in her mind. Suddenly, Alex stood again, louder this time. "Your Honour, if I may," he said, and the judge gave him the wary glance that screamed, "I've heard this before. I just want to make sure the family understands all assets involved. There's a property in Oregon and I've reason to believe my cousin, Alex," he paused, smirking at me as if he'd caught me in some crime, maybe hiding financial accounts from Aunt's estate. I froze. The room went still. The clerk looked like he'd swallowed the pencil. Even Mia's face paled. Lena's hand gripped mine so tightly I thought she'd break my skin. "Alex," I said, my voice low but sharp, "stop, you're lying, and you know it." He chuckled, the sound cold and irritating. "Am I, cousin, or are you hiding the truth?" I stood, finally letting my anger flare. "I have nothing to hide, and you're twisting everything to make yourself look like the victim, when all you care about is stealing what isn't yours." There it was, the words I'd wanted to say all week. The courtroom seemed to inhale sharply at my outburst. The judge raised an eyebrow, clearly unimpressed by the theatrics. "Let's maintain decorum," she said firmly. But Alex wasn't done. He leaned toward Lena, practically whispering loud enough for anyone near him to hear. "You know, he's been keeping money from you two. Don't let him fool you." My chest tightened. Lena's eyes widened in shock. She looked at me, and I could see the confusion battling trust. My heart pounded. Alex had managed to insert himself into our relationship at the worst possible moment. Mia finally stood beside me, placing a hand on my shoulder. "Don't let him get to you," she said quietly. "We know the truth." I nodded, swallowing my panic. It was no longer just about inheritance, it was about keeping our family from unraveling entirely because of Alex's manipulations. The judge cleared her throat. "Mr. Alex, I need documentation if you're going to make these claims. Otherwise, I'm warning you, any further unsubstantiated accusations will reflect poorly in this matter." He blinked, pretending to be flustered, but I could see the gears turning. He was going to push harder, try to create more doubt, and test the boundaries of our patience. And just like that, the emotional battlefield he'd created wasn't just about money, it was about trust, love, and the family bonds he was trying to destroy. I clenched my fists under the table, staring at him. "This ends today," I muttered. Little did I know, the real climax, the explosive confrontation, was about to hit. By mid-morning, the courthouse felt like a pressure cooker. Every sound of the gavel, the shuffling of papers, murmured conversations echoed like a countdown to disaster. Alex had clearly decided that subtlety was for the weak. He wasn't just challenging the inheritance anymore, he was trying to dismantle my credibility in front of everyone. It started when he pulled out a folder thick with papers. "Your Honour," he said, dramatically laying it on the table, "I have evidence here suggesting my cousin has been transferring funds from Aunt's accounts without disclosure. These statements show withdrawals I cannot explain." The judge squinted at the documents. "Have these been verified?" she asked sharply. "Verified?" Alex scoffed. "I'm presenting them for transparency. It's not my job to audit someone else's behaviour, that's the point." I could feel Lena's hand shaking in mine. I squeezed it tightly, whispering, "It's okay, none of this is true." Then came the moment that made my blood run cold. Alex leaned over and, with a sinister grin, said loud enough for the row behind us to hear, "You know, Lena, I've been telling him about honesty. Maybe you should rethink who you trust." Lena froze. Her eyes darted between Alex and me, searching for some hidden truth I had never hinted at. I could feel every pair of eyes in the courtroom on us. It was like being on display, our relationship, my integrity, everything being dissected by Alex's calculated manipulation. Alex, I finally snapped, standing so abruptly my chair scraped the floor. You're lying. You have nothing that proves any of this. You're just trying to destroy me and everyone I care about to steal what isn't yours. He leaned back smugly, folding his arms. Call it what you want, but people will see the evidence. Mia, who had been quiet all morning, stood next to me. Enough, she said, her voice trembling with anger. This isn't about you, Alex. Aunt made her wishes clear, and you're twisting them because you're greedy. You're trying to ruin our family. The judge, finally losing patience, banged her gavel. Mr. Alex, if these documents are unverified, we will move forward without considering them. Any further attempts to manipulate others in this courtroom will be noted. But Alex wasn't done. He smirked and motioned toward the courtroom audience. Everyone should know who's really been managing this estate. I've been patient, but it's time the truth came out. Then, in a move I didn't expect, Lena stood up. She looked directly at Alex, her voice steady despite the tension. Alex, stop. I've known him for years. You're twisting everything to make yourself look righteous. I trust him, and that's the only truth that matters. The room went silent. Even Alex's smug grin faltered slightly. For a moment, I could breathe. Lena's words were like armor around my chest, a shield against Alex's calculated attacks. The judge nodded approvingly, and I realized that this confrontation, the real, raw exposure of Alex's manipulations, was beginning to turn in our favor. But even as relief washed over me, I knew the worst was yet to come. Alex's desperation would push him further, and the inheritance battle wasn't over. After Lena's defense, the courtroom felt a fragile calm, but I knew better. Alex never backed down when he smelled an opening, and right now, he was circling like a shark. The judge shuffled papers, trying to regain order, and asked Alex to explain the documents he'd submitted. That's when the real chaos began. Your Honor, Alex started, his tone suddenly colder. I didn't come here to argue. I came to expose deception. These papers show money being siphoned from Aunt's accounts, transfers to accounts under my cousin's name. He's been hiding assets to get more than his fair share. I froze. My stomach twisted. My hands were shaking, but I forced myself to speak. That's a lie. Those transfers were for bills, for repairs on Aunt's house. Everything is documented and fully transparent. Alex smiled like he had me cornered. Oh, I have receipts too, he said, flipping open another folder. And these don't match up with what you've told the family. Funny, isn't it? Mia whispered, he's trying to make us doubt everything. I could feel Lena's hand tighten in mine again. I met her gaze and whispered, I didn't do anything wrong, trust me. Then Alex did the unthinkable. He turned toward the entire courtroom and, with theatrical flair, said, and another thing, let's talk about who Aunt really trusted. I've spoken to her lawyer. She wanted me to manage the estate because clearly some in this family can be trusted. A hush fell. My mom's face drained of colour. Alex, stop her, she yelled. You are lying, and you know it. Alex shrugged, acting offended. I'm just delivering the truth. People should know before it's too late. That was the breaking point. I stood, voice trembling but loud. Enough, this isn't about truth, it's about you trying to steal what isn't yours. Aunt made her decision, and you have no right to manipulate everyone to take it away. You're exposing lies, Alex, but they're your lies, not ours. The judge slammed her gavel, silencing the room. Mr. Alex, unless you have verified evidence, I will hold you in contempt. Alex's face fell slightly. He realized the courtroom wasn't going to be the playground he thought. But before he could react, Mia pulled out her phone. Wait, she said, her voice shaking with urgency. Look at this emails from Aunt herself, instructing us how the estate should be divided. Alex had no access to this, proof that everything he's claiming is false. I took the phone from her and read the messages aloud. The courtroom went quiet again, but this time, in our favour. Lena leaned in, whispering, you see, the truth is on our side. Alex's smug grin faltered into a grimace. He looked like a predator whose prey had just slipped out of his grasp. The judge studied the messages and nodded. This clearly shows intent and transparency from the rightful heirs. Mr. Alex, any further interference will not be tolerated. Consider this your final warning. Relief flooded me, but the emotional toll was heavy. Alex wasn't defeated, yet he was just exposed. And in the cold, wooden halls of the courthouse, I realized the inheritance fight had become a battle for the soul of our family, not just the money. After the judge's warning, I thought Alex might finally back down. I was wrong. The moment the courtroom doors opened for a short recess, he stormed toward us like a hurricane, face red and eyes blazing with fury. You think he won? He spat, jabbing a finger toward me. You have no idea what I'm capable of. I could ruin you, Lena, everyone here, and get away with it. Lena stepped in front of me, her arms crossed. Alex, calm down. Threatening us isn't going to change a thing. He laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. You don't get it. I can change things. People will believe me. I have connections. I know lawyers, bankers, everything. Mia shook, her voice trembling but strong. Alex, stop. You're making yourself look insane. You're not proving anything. You're destroying your own credibility. I took a deep breath, forcing my anger into words. This is it, Alex. One more move like this, and the judge will see exactly who you are. You're trying to manipulate relationships, twist the truth, and steal what isn't yours, and it's not going to work. He paused for a second, scanning the room, probably trying to gauge if anyone still believed him. But then, in a desperate last-ditch attempt, he pulled out another envelope and slammed it on the table. These are my final claims, he said, voice shaking. I have proof that your cousin transferred large sums for personal use instead of estate management. The judge glanced at the envelope, eyebrows raised. And these documents are verified? Alex hesitated, and I saw it, the first crack in his armour. Well, not exactly, but the point is clear. The courtroom collectively held its breath. This was it, the moment Alex either salvaged some shred of credibility or exposed himself entirely. I leaned forward, calm but firm. Your Honour, if I may, I said, holding up Mia's phone with Aunt's verified emails. These show every transaction, every account, and instructions directly from Aunt. Alex's claims are unverified and false. continuing this will not only harm the family but also show a clear intent to manipulate and interfere. The judge scanned the emails, then looked directly at Alex. Mr. Alex, this is your final warning. Any further unsubstantiated claims will be treated as contempt and could result in fines or more serious consequences. Alex's shoulders slumped. Fire in his eyes dimmed, replaced by grudging awareness that the courtroom and the family was no longer his stage. He muttered something under his breath and sank back into his chair, defeated in the most humiliating way possible. I exhaled, the tension leaving my shoulders in one long, shaky breath. Lena squeezed my hand and whispered, "We did it." He stayed calm, and the truth won. Mia nodded, tears in her eyes. Finally, he can't twist anything now. Aunt's wishes are safe. Even my mum, who had been pale and silent the whole time, smiled for the first time that day. "It's over," she said softly. "You protected the family and Aunt's legacy." As the gavel came down for the final ruling in our favour, I realised something important. This wasn't just about money or inheritance, it was about standing up to manipulation, defending relationships, and protecting the trust we had in each other. Alex had tried to steal more than money that day. He tried to steal our sense of family. And he failed. The judge called everyone back to order, and the final phase of the hearing began. By now, the tension in the courtroom had shifted from raw fear to cautious relief. Alex slumped in his chair, still muttering under his breath, while the rest of us exchanged small, tentative smiles. The judge began to read the final instructions. Based on the verified documentation provided by the heirs, and considering the unsubstantiated claims from Mr. Alex, the court rules that the estate will be distributed according to Aunt's written wishes. I felt my shoulders loosen. Lena let out a quiet, relieved laugh beside me, and Mia wiped tears from her eyes. My mom, sitting close, leaned over to whisper, "You were right to trust your instincts. Alex couldn't touch what was ours." Alex, however, refused to go quietly. "This isn't over," he barked, standing abruptly. "You think you've won? This isn't the end. People will see the real me, the one Aunt trusted." The judge's gaze hardened. "Mr. Alex, that will be enough. Any further outbursts will result in immediate removal from this courtroom. Consider yourself warned." Alex muttered something incomprehensible and stormed out, leaving a trail of tension in his wake. I watched him go, feeling a mix of anger, relief, and exhaustion. He had tried every trick: relationship interference, false accusations, intimidation, but ultimately, he'd been exposed. As the room began to clear, Lena turned to me. "I can't believe he tried to involve me like that. I was so close to doubting you." I shook my head, smiling tiredly. "I know, but you didn't. That's what mattered. He couldn't break us." Me grabbed both our hands. "We need to stick together after this. Alex tried to pit us all against each other, but we survived. That's what counts." We walked out of the courthouse into the crisp autumn air, the sun breaking through the clouds as if it were a sign of relief and renewal. My mom hugged me tightly. "You protected the family and Aunt's legacy. I'm proud of you." Even though Alex's manipulations had been intense, I realised that the ordeal had strengthened the bonds between the people who truly mattered. Trust, once tested, had proven resilient. That evening, we sat together at my aunt's house, surrounded by old photos, letters, and memories. The tension from the courthouse lingered, but so did a sense of victory. Aunt's wishes were honoured, and Alex's interference had ultimately failed. I glanced at Lena, Mia, and my mom. We made it through, together. And in that moment, I felt the true inheritance wasn't the money or property, it was the relationships we protected, the trust we reaffirmed, and the knowledge that even the most manipulative person in the family couldn't destroy what we had built. Alex might have tried to steal the estate, twist our relationships, and dominate the narrative, but in the end, the real victory was preserving the family, intact and unbroken. The courthouse battle was over. The scars would remain, but the bonds we fought for had proven stronger than greed and deceit. Weeks after the courthouse drama, life slowly returned to something resembling normal. Alex had withdrawn from family gatherings, clearly nursing his bruised ego, and we didn't hear much from him except the occasional passive-aggressive message to Mia or me. We decided not to respond. There was nothing left to argue over. Aunt's wishes were clear, her estate properly divided, and most importantly, the trust between us family and loved ones remained intact. One Sunday, we all gathered at Aunt's old house, now officially ours. Lena helped me organise some of the paperwork while me unpacked boxes of Aunt's old keepsakes. My mum wandered through the rooms, smiling faintly. "It feels peaceful," she said. After all that chaos, I didn't think I'd ever hear myself say that. Lena nudged me. "It's amazing how things change once the storm passes. You were calm and they're really calm. That saved everything." I smiled, though memories of Alex's manipulations linger. He had tried to drive a wedge between me and Lena, so doubt in Mia's mind, and made my mom anxious beyond belief. Yet, when it mattered most, we stood united. They picked up a photo album and dropped it onto the coffee table. "Look at this," she said, flipping it open. "Remember Aunt's advice? Family is everything. Money doesn't matter if it breaks the bond." She was right. I nodded. Yeah, and Alex forgot that lesson. He thought greed would win, but he underestimated the people who actually cared about each other. Later, as the sun dipped behind the horizon, casting golden light across the living room, Lena leaned against me. "You know," she said quietly, "we've survived a lot, and I think we're stronger for it." I pulled her close. "Absolutely. Alex's interference was the worst, but it showed us who we can really trust, and that's priceless." Even my mom seemed lighter, laughing as me recounted the courthouse chaos in exaggerated detail. "I can't believe he actually tried to twist the emails from Aunt herself," she chuckled. The nerve. For the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to truly exhale. The inheritance was safe, the relationships we cherished were intact, and Alex's schemes had failed spectacularly. We knew, however, that he would always be a part of our lives, a reminder that some people let greed and manipulation override family bonds. But seeing him removed from the narrative, even temporarily, was a relief. That night, as I lay in bed, I reflected on everything. The stolen inheritance, the relationship interference, the tension, the fear, it was all part of a storm that tested us. But storms, I realized, don't last forever. And those who weather them together, they emerge stronger, closer, and wiser. Alex had tried to take more than money that day. He tried to take our trust, our peace, our unity, but in the end he failed. And what we gained to clarity, resilience, and each other was worth infinitely more than any inheritance. The family drama was over, and for the first time I felt a quiet kind of victory, a sense that even in the darkest moments, truth, love, and loyalty could prevail.